Okay, so today we're going to be looking not only at sending email using your Gmail account from VBA, but also to be able to send a text message through VBA. Don't cheer yet. It's going to take a little work to get there. So let's go ahead and download the files. So download these two files. Now this one, email message.txt, if you just click on it, chances are your browser is going to say, oh, it's a text file, I'll just show it to you. You can just like do Control S here to save it, or you can right click and do something like save link as, and that will download the file instead of opening it. So you want those downloaded. Now, as it turns out, we have to know something about the mail server that we're going to interact with. So I use a process very, very similar to this to send out email using my BYU account. But that's going to be a specific server that I have to know the server, I have to know the port that server is listening on. You remember our discussion about ports and like domain names and so forth. You got to know some information about that. And so we're going to use Gmail because I figure you all have a Gmail account somewhere that you can use. Now, here's a problem, is that Gmail says, listen, we don't want you using like your real Gmail account to authenticate through some kind of third-party app, like for sending email. And so they say, if you're going to use some other interface besides our Gmail interface to send email, you're going to have to set up what's called an app password. We're not going to let you use your Google username and password to log in to get permissions. They're going to make a new password that's just for this one application. And there's a step you have to do before you get there, and that is you have to have dual factor authentication. How many of you are already using dual factor authentication on your primary email account? Okay, so that's good for you. If you're not, we're going to put, I don't know if Gmail is your primary email account, but we're going to put dual factor authentication on today. You need it to be able to do this example. You can take it off if you want, but you don't want to take it off. Answer this question for me. How bad could your life get if someone else got a hold of your primary email account, got credentials to it? Why would it be bad? How bad? Why? Well, yeah, tell me some of the things that could go wrong. Yeah. So if you decide, oh, I need to go to Amazon.com and log in. Oh, I forgot my email. I forgot my username. What am I going to do? Yeah, like if I have control of that email address, I can reset that password and get into any account that they could find that you have. They're going to guess the accounts that you have. They're going, you probably have an account at Amazon. You probably have an account at, I don't know, where else would you have an account? Yeah, probably Venmo, kind of lots of places where you might check, maybe even try some of the larger banks. But if I could look through your email and see what kind of correspondence you have, all of a sudden I have a great feeling about where you have accounts and I can get access to them. And so the whole idea behind two-factor authentication is you say, listen, username and password is not enough. Once you get a username and password, they're going to like send you a text message to your phone, kind of like Duo that you log in here at BYU. So setting that up. If you don't have two-factor authentication on your personal email account, you are living on the edge with your whole digital life. So we're going to go there today, and hopefully you'll stick with it if Gmail happens to be. If you're using something besides Gmail as your primary email account, hopefully after today, you'll go figure out how to do it there as well. So we look down here to the links section. I'm going to come where it says app passwords. So this is where it talks about setting up a specific password that you can use, like make a password that's just for a particular application. But it's letting you know that, hey, listen, app passwords can only be used with accounts that have two-step verification turned on. So let's go ahead and go through the processes turning on two-step verification. So I'm following, actually, I want to follow that link. A separate tab. So go to your Google account. You're going to navigate to the security panel and then sign in to Google. Under sign to Google, you're going to go two-step verification and get started. So let's just take a minute, and I'm going to help you. Those of you who need to get through that, go through that, because I've already got it set up on my account. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. All right, so now we're going to come and do an app password. So what do we do here? We're going to sign in. if you use two-step verification, no, where is it? Signing in with that password, two-step verification. Oh, here it is. Create and use app passwords. Go to Google account, go to security, and then select app passwords. Google account, security, and then app security. Google app passwords. Here we go. Go ahead and click on this one. Gonna make sure I really am me. It's kind of a dangerous thing. I want to make sure I really am who I say I am. So I created one this morning, and I was going to actually use that one, but now I forgot to bring it to class. So we're going to create another one. Are we ready to do it? Okay, so we're going to get right to here where you've got the button that says generate, even though it's gray right now. And let's go ahead and get there.
So what is the app?
We'll do that together. Yeah, so that's just kind of, that's really just something to let you know when you look at this, you have a whole list of passwords. You don't get to see the password after you create it, but they'll kind of tell you which one this is. So the idea here is that you can kind of grant specific access, but then you go, hey, maybe you can revoke it and you change the whole password. I want to get rid of that app password now. Whoever application had that no longer has access to Google. There were some folks who were looking for some help here. Installed.
So we just copy the password that was generated.
We'll put that together. Yeah, that's what you can do. Okay, so now select app. We're going to make this mail. And then select device. We're going to use other. And yeah, actually, maybe I didn't need to select mail because maybe that went away. I'm not quite sure. So I'm just going to call this VBA mail sender. Okay, I'm going to click generate. I'm going to do it off screen. Just because I don't really want that code. And then you're going to see kind of an orange box that's got four. It's got like 4 groups of digits in it. So it looks something like this, except that information is filled out. So you're going to copy those digits that are there, and that's what we need to do. So as soon as you close this, you can never get that password back again. So Google doesn't even save it in a way that they could give it back to you if you paid them lots of money to give you that password. So it'll get saved using some kind of a one-way cipher that they can verify that it's typed in right. They can't ever reproduce it for you. Okay. So make sure you've got that copy. You might want to paste it into a text editor for now, or just leave it on the clipboard and make sure that you don't paste anything, copy anything over it until we get there. So once you've got that, so I put email for the app. But I don't think that made a difference. When I selected device, I went to other, and I typed in VBA email sender. So the idea here is that when I want to revoke the permissions that I've given out that password for, I can just delete this, and now Google will no longer authenticate that password. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and open up the workbook that we downloaded. That's a good question, but I think I am. Yeah, I'm recording, so we're good. Thank you for checking on that. All right, so downloaded that file. Oops. Email, send gmail.xlsm. Enable editing. Enable content. Okay, so here's the context for the example today. We're going to assume that you have just gotten an internship working for the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau, and you're on a project to examine complaints that have been made about the anti-lock brake systems on cars. So you've got a record of these complaint letters. And here's the person, we've taken away their email addresses here. You're going to want to put in an email address here that you actually have access to, preferably not your Gmail account. So if you have another email account, just kind of, well, we'll do that in just a second when we actually get ready to send. But the idea is, your job is to reach out to all these people and you write an email that says, "Dear Sharon, when I heard about the trouble you had with your 2018 Chevy Silverado, I was deeply troubled. Here we take safety seriously. I will not rest until whatever you're going to say." So you want to be kind of a personalized email, and you're going to send that then automatically for all of these people. Okay, so I've gotten you started a little bit with this. So let me go ahead and bring up my VBA editor. Oh, and we've just gone through an update on these systems. So stand by while I make the font a little bit bigger. Tools, options, format. 20 points. Okay. So we have here, in fact, I think this will work. Let's just go ahead and we need to run, oh, I forgot. I think I put this in the menu. Yeah, so you've got a menu. It's the first time we've had a menu for this example. So we've got a menu in the ribbon with 3 buttons on it that are kind of already hooked up to do some things. So send is the one we're working on today. Set and clear credentials is ready to go. So I'm going to click on set credentials. And what this is going to do is it's going to say, all right, we've got a password that's kind of sensitive. And it's not one you're going to, hopefully, it's going to try to memorize. And so you're going to put in here your Google account username. So for me, it's gov.allen. So whatever your, at gmail.com, before the at gmail.com is what goes in here for the username. The password is going to be that app password that you just copied. And what we're about to do is we're about to encrypt that password and your username, and we're going to hide it in the workbook, encrypted. So we're about to make a new password, as if you didn't have enough passwords in your life. Make a new password that you will have to use to actually get access to this key. And so that's to get access to your app password. And so this is actually going to be the encryption key that we're going to use. And so you can think of this as a password. So I'm going to type in a password that I used to use a lot, but I don't use anymore anywhere else, so I'll use it here. You might be able to remember that. So what that's just done is it's taken the key and the username, it's encrypted that information, and the code to encrypt it is in here. We're not going to go over it today, but it's here if you want to kind of go and look and see what it does. And it's going to put it onto a hidden worksheet. So how do you unhide a worksheet? Right-click the sheets, and you choose unhide, but this says there's no other worksheet to unhide. That's because I didn't just make it hidden, I made it very hidden. So here's how you get to look at a very hidden worksheet. I'm going to come into VBA, and you recognize your worksheet list over here. Zoom in. Right, you recognize your list of worksheets over here. Well, there's this one here called credentials. I'm going to select it, and then come down to these properties down here. And for visible, you'll see that there are 3 options. And this one is, you've got visible, hidden, and this one, which is very hidden. So very hidden is still there, but the user cannot, there's no way through the Excel interface to show that. You've got to come into VBA to show it. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to visible here, and that should have shown that worksheet. So now I can see credentials here, and here's where it has now put that information encrypted. Again, we can't unencrypt this unless, unless we have the key that we encrypted this with. So you'll kind of need to remember that, and if you've forgotten it, you'll need to regenerate password and kind of go through that process again. I'm going to go ahead and make this very hidden again. We don't want anyone snooping around. Wondering, what are these credentials for? So I'll make that very hidden. And so now it's gone, but we can still access it through code, and we can refer to a range on that sheet, which is called credentials. Okay, so now we've put the app password into here, and as long as we can remember the little key that we put in, we should be able to access, decrypt it, and use it in our it's like okay, so now that we've got that off the clipboard, we don't have to worry about losing it. Let's go ahead and kind of get this set up. So I'm going to come in here and say, you know what, I'm just going to put all of these as my main BYU address. gov@gmail.com. You definitely want this to be an account that you have access to. And the truth is, we're not going to send all of these messages, but I might as well fill it out. Today we'll probably just send 3 or 4 messages. You're going to spam yourself. There you go. But of course, in the regular data, these will be real email addresses that we're needing to send out. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the other file that we downloaded, which was this PC. Just that text file. I'm going to open up that text file so we can take a look at it so we can kind of understand what the project is that we're after here. This as word wrap. So the way I've set up this file is I've said, listen, the first line of this file is going to be what it was going to be the subject, and then everything else will be the body for this message. So I drive a 1999 Ford F-350. And so if I got an email that said, problem with your 1999 Ford F-350, I would say someone knows enough about me to know that I've got that car. That's not a normal information that a spammer would have, and so I'm probably going to open them. And then we'd like it to say, dear Evelyn. Or was it Evelyn? Was that her person? I forget. Shannon? Dear Sharon. Dear Sharon, when I heard about the trouble you had with your, whatever her car is, with these which I recently assigned to your case, I want to give my contact information, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sincerely, and then your name and phone number. So what we want to do, or your name and, yeah, phone number. These again are just tags, kind of similar to what we do with the SQL assignment, but these are just going to be text that we're going to be replacing through code. So that's going to be the idea, is that we want to take the information from this line, read in this file, and make all the changes, send it off. Go to the next one. Probably not read the file again. We'll probably keep around the template that we've opened, populate it, send it out, and so forth. So you see where we're going with this? Okay. So let's go ahead and come back to our code. Credentials, clear credentials. Here's send mail. So there's 2 modules. Module 1 is the one we're working in. And I'm just going to kind of walk you through mod Gmail, even though we are not going to need to make any changes here. I just kind of want to show you the objects that we're using. So this has a function here called send Gmail, and it's going to take some parameters. It's going to take who we're sending it to, who it's coming from, password that we're using, the subject and the body, and then optionally we can put an attachment. So the attachment is going to be like a path to a file that you want to attach. We're not going to be attaching files today, but it's possible. I just want to show you that it's possible to attach files. So we're going to have a couple of objects here. We're going to have one called CDO message, which is a common data object. So CDO stands for common data object, a message and a configuration. So the config is going to be what's getting us configured to be able to send. So this is how we tell this object how to work with the mail server. we've got to tell it how it's going to communicate. So send using here is a to, and that is we're going to send using a particular port. That's just one of the ways that it can connect and send mail. The SMTP server we're communicating with, this is the host name that Google gives us to be able to talk to their outgoing mail server. How would you find out that name? Yeah, you'd Google just, well, you would search for Google SMTP server or mail server, and you'd find that out, and that would also tell you the port. So this mail server is listening on this port. We're going to use basic authentication, and then we're going to give it the from, who it's from. We'll specify the password, and then we'll tell it that we're going to communicate in a secure fashion. So SSL is the secure socket layer. So traffic between this client and the mail server will be encrypted. And then we'll update that configuration. And so that is really similar to making the connection to the database, right? This is all the parameters we have to make the connection to the mail server. So we're not communicating with a database server like we did for the database project. We're connecting to a mail server. And then we're going to use that configuration later. So config is what we just built here. And we're going to use that to set the configuration of the message that we're getting ready to send. And then down here, we're going to say message sent. So now we're configuring the message. We're setting the property. There's a property called to. We're going to set who we're sending it to, who it's coming from, who what the subject is, the text body. It turns out you can specify an HTML body. We're going to be sending text, just text. But if you want to get fancier and send an HTML, so you can kind of put images and kind of fonts and bold, change the size and stuff. You can do that with an HTML body as well. Now, it turns out that in the early days of SMTP, if you could connect onto the SMTP server, you could just send a message and you could tell the server who it's from. And that does not necessarily have to be who it's really from. In fact, when Gmail was first started, it was just like you could connect even without authenticating. You could just connect onto their server and send mail. And you could say it was from the President of the United States. And it would really look like it was from the President of the United States. In what other class I teach, I actually show students how to do that. They start sending each other messages as if it's like from me. And I tell them to cut that out, but they do it anyway. But then Google pretty quickly realized that's a bad idea. And so now, even though here the protocol allows us to specify who it's from, Google's not going to, the Gmail server is not going to respect that. It's going to say, who is it really sending it from? It's sending it from whoever authenticated. So even though we're specifying who it is, it's going to ignore that because it's going to say, you authenticated, you're the one the message is from. Does that make sense?
So I include it in this code.
I'm including it in this code because you may very well need to work with your, it's a similar code to what I use to talk to the BYU's mail servers. And when I talk to that one, I can say who it's from. It's just part of the protocol, and it's here because this is an example that you might need to modify to work in a different environment. Kind of the same reason I've left these other things in here, even though they're just commented out, is to kind of show you how they would work. If we've given an attachment, we're going to call the add attachment method and just give it the path, and it will kind of build on that file as part of the message. Now we're going to say, all right, we're setting an error trap here. So this might fail. So we're going to say send the message. If the error number is 0, what does it mean? It means there was no error. It means we actually connected and talked to the server, and the server received the email to distribute. It does not mean that the user has received it. It means the mail server has accepted it to try to deliver it. So if we have a bad email address, it will fail at this step. But if it doesn't have an error here, then we're going to return true. So this function is going to return true or false if it was successful to send the message on its way. Otherwise, it's going to return false, and we're just going to print out some information about what failed. But we'll be able to use that signal, true or false, to be able to know at least did we get the message off on its way. And we'll use that in the code that we're using. And that really is it in terms of what we're doing here with sending the message. So if a lot of that you went, wow, I totally didn't follow that, that's okay. For sending Gmail, you can use this without ever opening this. It's just kind of set up to work with Gmail. But if you get to the point where you think, I want to modify that's doing, for instance, you might say, I want to be able to send 3 or 4 attachments. And right now, the way it's coded, it will only send a single attachment. So you may want to come in and edit it someday, and you can. So I wanted to at least give you an overview here. But we're going to be working right here inside this send mail procedure, which we've gotten started. So we've got the variables here that I know that we're going to need to use. So we don't have to type all those in. This then is actually working with the form called form password here to go ahead and get the credentials. So in terms of reading those credentials, decrypting them, and kind of getting them ready to use, putting them in a username and password here. Again, that's beyond what we're doing here today. It's just saying, you know, the code is here. If you want to see how I did it, you're more than welcome to study it. But at this point, you're just going to believe if we made it here, we've got a username and a password, and we're ready to go. Questions? All right, so let's talk about the process that we're trying to do. I think step 1 is going to be getting that template read in. So we're just working with a text file here. I'm going to go ahead and just bring that in. So we've got a string variable called template. And so I need to be able to get that, that value. So I'm going to open up that file as a text file. So open this workbook.path. Concatenated with, oh, and by the way, sorry, Mac users, we're using objects that are Microsoft objects here. So you can follow along, but you won't actually be able to send today. Sadly. Application.path separator. And then might be a good idea for us to, yeah, why don't we do this? Let's instead of just opening this once, I'm going to open it for every message. That's going to let us do something kind of interesting here. So let's come over here and add a new column. Let me make a column here called message. And I'm just going to put the name of the file, of this particular file. So this is called email message. Probably be better if it was called welcome message or something, but I'm just going to say that is the name of the file that I'm going to use to send. So it would be, it's possible now for us to say, you know what, we could have different email templates that are out there, and then kind of depending on other things, you know, which one do we actually want to save? So rather than hard code that path into our code, we're going to pull it off of the sheet. In fact, while we're kind of modifying columns here, let's go ahead and look at some other ones that we might need to do. So model year, make, and make name, I think we've got. Make name, model name, model year. That's just, it's called year text here. I'm going to want the names of these to correspond to these tags that we have. So I'm either going to change my tags to correspond to what we have here, or I'm going to change the column to correspond to this. Why don't we leave the column as it is? And I'm going to change model name to be year text. We're going to kind of automatically go through and fill in these variables. So I'm going to make it all capital. First name, we've got F name, so let me change this to F name instead of first name. Model year, we're changing to year text. Because I've recently assigned to your case, make and system. We've got, oh, it's not make, it's called make name. Let's go ahead and get that one called this make name. System is called system. Fail year. Now this one's interesting because we have the year that the failure happened. We have a fail date, but we don't have a fail year. So I'm going to insert a column here. I'm going to call this fail year. And we could do this conversion in our code. I'm going to do it out here because I would like what we're writing today to be a general purpose tool. That as long as whatever data we put here on our data sheet, as long as the names of the columns match up to my parameters, I just want to be able to fill them in run. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. There's a year text column. not.
Year text is the car. It's the year the car was made. Fail date is the date that they said the failure was.
Under code, don't you want to change the year text with model year?
Maybe I've misread something. So model year, I should have changed to year text throughout. Was that what you were saying?
Yeah, model year, problem with model year is the first place where. it shows
Oh,
up.
what did I change?
Model name.
Oh, this is model name. Thank you very much. M-O-D-E-L name. Should be your text. Okay, so I want
Text is the- in a column where it's put right.
your TXT. Did I get it right anywhere? All right, thank you. You do have to correspond. So I'm trying to make this one here fail year. And I think this just needs to be formatted as text. When I copied it, it took the format to the cell to the left of it. So format cells. This as general. So I just put a formula in here to extract the year off of that date. So year of M2, and I'm going to copy that down. Most of them happened in 2019, but some were we're reaching back here, 2012. When did they write the letter? We have a date they made the complaint, but we don't. What's that? Format is general. Yeah, when I copied that, when I inserted the column, it took the format to the column to the left, and so it tried to render it as a date, but just wanted it as general. What do we have going on here anyway? In cold conditions, while driving through small amounts of slush, the brakes became inoperative, the left rear wheel locked up, causing an accident. So we get kind of a summary of what the complaint was typed in by somebody. Okay. I think for time's sake, we're going to just now modify the, well, yeah, we could add a column for agent name and agent phone, but why don't you just come in and edit this and kind of put in your own information. But again, if they were tags, we could kind of make columns for them, put the data in, it would go through the same process. Okay, so I think we're ready to bring that in. Save this. So what we really need to do then next is we've got to have a loop that is going to go through all the columns. So let's start off by kind of building the, let's build the loop that's going to go through the rows first. Okay, so we've got R declared as a long. So let's set R equal to 2. And the idea here is that once we successfully send the message, we want to put the date and time that we sent it here. So we don't want to send the same message twice. Is it possible that we'll get partway through here and our code will stop for something unexpected? Yeah, we want to know where we left off. So we want to get this kind of updated as to how far we made it. So what I'm going to do first is make a loop that just kind of reads until I find a blank cell here. Because if I got dates, I want to kind of skip by those until I hit one that hasn't been sent. So kind of a simple loop here, do until the name of the sheet is data. Data cells R, 1. Value is equal to blank. Actually, we want to do until. We're going to just kind of keep skipping until we find the blank line. All we're doing here is adding 1 to R. So that should just loop down until it finds the row that we want to work with. In our case, the first one we're going to work with is the first one because it's going to come here until that cell is blank, R is 2, and we'll say, yeah, we're not even going to go into that loop at all. We're just going to jump past it. Yeah.
So, do you want to say those cells are not equal? No, because right now it's already empty.
So so what we're doing, this is a little bit weird because we don't have the condition that we're trying to bypass here yet. That's going to come in as a part of this example.
Okay.
So we do want to do it until it's an empty cell. And that's one way to check for an empty cell. Okay, once, so imagine that we've got dates in here. So that would indicate that these first messages have been sent. So what that loop is doing is saying we're going to keep going down until we find a blank cell. So this will be the first one that we're trying to send. That's what that loop does. And so now, once we do that, we want to keep going down until we hit a blank here. So as long as we've got a message to send, then we're ready to send it. So we'll have another loop that looks just the same, so much the same. I think we're just going to copy it. And we're not looking at column 1 now, we're looking at column 2. This one we're going to work inside. So now when we're inside this loop, it's going to be operating for one row. And then when it's done, we'll increment R, and then it'll take us down to the next row and do what we have to do. So inside here is where we're going to go ahead and open up that file. And I think we're just going to assume that the message is here in column 2. That's going to be a kind of a fixture here. The rest of these, we're not going to care the order that they're in, but we're going to put the message here in column 2. So now we're going to look at data.cells, row number R, column number 2. Not that. What am I missing? Open for input as number 1. Close number 1. And here we've got a variable already declared called template. We're going to say template equals, and then we want to read in this whole file. We haven't seen how to read in a whole file yet, but it's just the input function. Input function takes 2 arguments. It takes how many characters to read, and then it takes the file number. So it's file number 1 that we're reading from. And there's another function called LOF, length of file, file number 1. So it's kind of a strange line. Input LOF1, comma 1. So this is going to return how many characters there are in file number 1. And then we're going to input that many characters from file number 1, and that will be in our template. Just go ahead and put a breakpoint here. Stop. I'm going to run this to here. It's now asking for my credentials. It actually, for me, it has remembered that key. So I'm remembering the key until we close Excel. Otherwise, you'll type in that key. I'll say OK. And so I should be able to look at the template. Yeah, it looks like it's there. So that whole text is in there. So we kind of, at this point, successfully read in the file now that we're going to put the values into send. Questions? Okay, now I've got that ready. I'm ready to parameterize. I'm actually ready to put the values into that. So I'm going to have another do loop here. I'm going to do until data.cells. Now what I want to do here is I want to start looking here in column 3, and I want to go across all of this. I'm gonna say, listen, if I've got a tag in there that's F name, I want to put Sharon into that F name. I want to replace it. So we're going to have this loop until we run into where there's no data, looking at the column headers. So I want to go all the way across here. So it's going to say, the code doesn't care what we're replacing it with. It doesn't care what the parameters are called. It's just going to say, if you've got a parameter in there called C summary, great. We're going to replace that tag C summary with whatever is in column Q. That's the idea. So we're going to do until row number 1, column number C is equal to a 0-length string. So let's start off column C at 3. Is that right? Because I think the first one, we're not looking there. We're not looking for the name of the message. That'll be the first possible data that we're after. C equals C plus 1. Do events. I think we want to do one more thing. We read the template in. Actually, since we're reading this in every time, we don't need the template. I'm going to change this to message. In my earlier conception of this, we're going to read the file once and then modify it multiple times. So we had to keep the original file each one. But now, the way we're doing it now, it's going to read the file in each time. So we can go straight to the message. I'm going to say that my message is now going to equal what it used to be using the replace function. Looking at the message, looking for something, and then replacing it with something. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a tag that has on the inside the uppercase of whatever we're currently looking at. So data cells, not. That's right. We're looking for the tag that's defined by what's on row 1. So this will be an open bracket. Like the first comparison, we're looking for a capital F name inside of open brackets. Good news. That's one of the things we're trying to replace. And what are we going to replace it with? Whatever is in the cell on that same column on row R, the one that actually has the data. Might be pretty hard to read back there. Let me just kind of clear that up for you. Thank you. It's a comma. Looks good. Now, what I'm saying here is I'm saying, listen, I don't know. I'm pretty comfortable to say, listen, this thing, this whole setup, I mean, I've got to know that this is column B to get the email address. But depending on what data I'm bringing in here, I'm not sure where the email column is going to be. So one thing I could do is say, well, let's move the email column over to column 3 so we always know that's in column 3 to pull out the email. But I can also come here and say, listen, if the uppercase, oops, I'm leaving off dot value here where I shouldn't. It would work without the dot value because dot value is the default property. I prefer to see it written out. So I'm going to say if uppercase of whatever column we're on, row 1, is equal to email, then I want to put that into my email message. I want to put that in, I mean, I've got a variable called email. So for each message, I'm going to scan across all the columns. When I find the one that says email, I'm going to go ahead and put it in there. Because I don't want this to, kind of accidentally, no, I think it's okay. Never mind. We've got an email column that's going to work. When we find the column header that says email, we're going to read not off of row 1, but we're going to read it off of row R. Okay, so once we've gotten through this loop, we've now filled in all the parameters. Okay, so now I'm close to being ready to send. By this time, I've got the username and password that I've kind of read off our existing structure for handling that. I've got the email address that I'm sending it to. What else do I need? Oh, my message right now has the subject and the message put together as one block of text. So I've got to split that apart. I think when I was cleaning this up for today, I got rid of a variable that we're going to need. So let's come back up and make another variable up here called position, POS. That's short for position, as an integer. Because I'm going to need to now separate the first line from that variable. I want to do this after I parameterize it. So I've got the whole message there. That way the subject can be parameterized, the rest of the body all with the same structure. But now I'm ready to separate off that first line. So I've got to find out where the carriage return character is. So now I'm going to say position equals in string. Looking at my message, looking for, there's a constant that knows what the line continuation character is, VB new line. And I actually want to start looking at the number 1 position. Let me go ahead and come here up. I'm going to drag my current position indicator back up here to where C is equal to 3, run that through, and my position should be, shouldn't be terribly far. Didn't find it. Let me check my message. That's template. Let me try this again. Oh, the message is empty. Oh, maybe, no. Oh, no, it was called template before. I'm going to stop this code and run it again. When I read it before, it was called template, so it never got defined. I've got to put my key in to unlock my password because I stopped the code, it dumped off all the variables. If I remember what I called it. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at message. Yeah, problem through 2018, Chevy or Sharon. 2018, I need a space in there. Have you gotten emails like this before? That was obviously parameterized. I left something out. So for me, I missed a space somewhere right here. But my real question at this point is, what is my position? 43. That makes sense because what we're saying is that this is going to be about 42, 43 characters long. So now that I know where the end of that line is, I should be able to say that my subject is equal to the left of message. How many characters do we want? Position -1. So it found it at 40, it found the carriage return character at 43, which means the first 42 characters are what I want for the subject. And my message is just going to be the rest of it. Is equal to the mid of message, starting at position +2 and taking the rest of the string. That should give me a subject now separate from the message if I run those lines. I think I just ruined it. I'm going to stop it. My credential. Subject looks good. Message looks good. Starts with your sharing. So I've now successfully separated apart the message from the body. I'm ready to send the message. Shall I do it? Let's do it. I don't think I've got everything, do I? Yeah, so let's now what I want to do is I want to put the value into column 1, whichever row I'm on. So row number R, column number 1 dot value is equal to send Gmail. Because remember, send Gmail returns true or false. I thought it'll be fine here. I might want to say if we sent it, we'll just put a true or false in there for now. And if we have time, which we won't, we'll come back and modify it. So send to is email. From is username. Password is PW. Subject is subject. Body is message. It looks like that failed. And let's see why. So it says false. And we knew it failed because it put this message up here. At least one of the from or sender fields is required, and neither was found. Username is there. Oh, that's not a valid email address. So I put the wrong email address in. I don't think that's the error, but might be. That'd be great if that was my email address. Stop my code. Let me go delete the false here. My caps lock on? My caps lock is on. That one's still false.
Does it have to do with the from not being an email?
So username actually, review this. I didn't think I had to put that on there, but that's worth a try. Let me come up here and concatenate on at gmail.com. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Thank you. I don't think I would have got there in time before class was over. We got 5 minutes. So yeah, it's expecting that to come in as at gmail.com. So username, I put in just as, I didn't put in the at gmail.com when I made those credentials. If I'd have put it in when I made those credentials, it probably would have been okay the way I had it. Here I'm going to go ahead and have to add the at gmail.com. So now I should have put true over there. That's great. I think this is ready to keep going. Let me do this. Let me just say, well, actually, let me just see if the message came through. Should get pushed through here. filtered out because it is kind of a spammy message. Get filtered there. Anyone get that message come through? Yeah, so why is why not coming through? I'm not quite sure. Okay, but I do need to kind of finish off this example. Glad that yours is going through. Hopefully I can figure that out. If it's a problem with my code, I'll get it fixed here kind of before we terminate the video. So I'm just going to come in here and say, if R is greater than 4, then exit do. Because the truth is, I don't want to send 100 of these messages to myself. Put a stop out here. That should run through sending those messages. Send a few more. And I hit the stop. So this is just kind of artificial exit. So I don't actually have to do all the ones that I'm after. But you'll notice that it takes a few seconds to actually send that message. And so I've got hundreds to send here, or more than 100. It's going to take several minutes to run through this. I'm probably going to go up and get a ham sandwich or something. And I would like my computer to tell me when it's done. So we're going to have it send me a text message. So once it gets out of this loop. Now, the way we're going to do this is by using the email to text gateway. All the major phone carriers provide this. And so if we go in, which means if you properly format an email, send an email, it will actually convert that into a text message and then send it along. And that's what we have here under the system info is I've got like the prefixes for these different mail providers. One, I think I recently switched to AT&T. Is that right? Yeah. So I am going to send an email. Let's see. I'm just going to copy this line because it's going to be similar. I'm going to send the email to my phone number, which is this is probably why I get so many spam emails, telephone calls, is I publish my email on YouTube. At att.net. So if I send if I put a 10-digit number here at the proper email gateway for the carrier, then they will convert that into a text message for me. Who am I going to send this? Let's see, username and Gmail. These two will be the same because I'm still sending it through my Gmail account. Subject will be done. The message will be master. I have completed your bidding. I have done your bidding. And await further instructions. I like my software to have the proper sense of deference to me. So let me turn off. I don't know if we'll hear it come through. Hopefully it will come through because I'm not even positive that we've sent that message yet. Oh, the phone is on off of mute. I don't know if you'll hear it or not, but let's give it a try. There it is. So I don't really have a good way to show it to you, but oh yeah, here it is. Subs done. Message. Master, I've done your bidding and await further instructions. So just check and see if the email actually finally did come through. Oh, got a failure. At Gmail. Okay, so that one, at least we can see it dispatched the message, and that message failed. Let me come here and refresh and see if the actually one that we wrote correctly went through. I don't see it, but we heard it come through, and some of you have been successful, so I think we're okay. Whew, so that's it. So now you've got kind of a general tool to use this. What do you have to do? Just bring your data in here. Clear out that column, put the name of the message that you want, make sure it's located in the same place where your Excel file is, and you should be able to send messages. Gmail, I think, limits you to sending 500 messages a day, like in total, or to 500 unique addresses. So you can't go crazy. But 500 messages is a lot for one day. Any questions?
Do you have actually the second do until loop in your code?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave this up for a little while, but we'll stop the video and call it a day. Class dismissed. I will, yeah.